Let's talk briefly about some of the key themes in An Inspector Calls. Okay, so themes are going to be our focus. Now, the reason that we talk about themes at all is quite simply because in the exam, realistically, you're going to be asked about a theme or you're going to be asked about a character or indeed characters. Okay, so we're focusing on themes today in Priestley's An Inspector Calls, published 1945/6. Now, I've suggested that there are 5 kind of really obvious contexts to consider, and these themes, they all hinge around one central theme, which is that of justice. Okay, now that justice might be in terms of kind of social justice, it might be in terms of criminal justice, it might even be in terms of moral justice, or whatever you might want to call it. Okay, justice is kind of at the heart of everything. Now, if we start with just social responsibility, this is the one that people tend to talk about most frequently and with the most ease. Okay, so really simply, the inspector starts with a really clear sense of what social responsibility, social justice might be. The other characters start a long way away from him. Okay, so the Burlings plus Gerald is there for the ride, start at a kind of a distance. And what the inspector is trying to do over the course of the play is to try and draw them towards him. Okay, and you will notice that characters like Sheila are brought along fairly effectively. Eric is brought along, but that's perhaps more because of his guilt than because he is really learning. Whereas Mr. Burling, he's made to feel like a bit of a fool, but he doesn't change his views. Mrs. Burling is even more resistant, and crucially, Gerald seems to be getting somewhere and then kind of does a loop-de-loop near the end. So this kind of diagram is just quite a useful way of looking at the character's attitudes towards social responsibility. The inspector is, from the very start, he is kind of, let's think of a few words to describe him. He is sanctimonious, okay, which is he's very kind of smug and convinced of his own moral fortitude. He is resolute, meaning that he is unshifted in his views from start to finish. And what he's trying to do is to bring these other characters along for the ride, because social responsibility is something that you need to accept. Okay, and acceptance of social responsibility, and then later, of course, acting on that social responsibility, is kind of the name of the game. But acceptance comes first. Sheila accepts it, Eric accepts it, and that is quite a significant win for the inspector. Why? Well, because they're young voters. Okay, and if they can accept social responsibility and act on it, then we might have a different future that could lead, dun dun dun, to justice. Okay, but it's also a really nice kind of segue into the next theme, which is that of intergenerational conflict, because the difference in reactions from the different characters to the inspector really tie into their ages. So the most resistant, we have Mr. and Mrs. Burling, who are likely both in their 50s. Then we have Gerald, and then we have Sheila and Eric. Now we have a bit of we have a lot of conflict between the Burling children and the Burling parents, and that conflict relates to their differing attitudes, which of course is a lovely kind of link to this idea of young voters from up here. They are going to vote in 1945 and bring around social reform. One might even argue social justice. Gerald, on the other hand, does not belong. And this is crucial. He is a man out of his time. He belongs in 1945. Sorry, he belongs in 1912. He does not belong in 1945 because he is unchanging. He is borderline dandy. He's on the cusp of being a dandy, i.e., a socialite, someone who does not really work for their keep or have any kind of real place in society, but just kind of goes around enjoying their existence. And he doesn't belong in the future. So he sits in the middle of their intergenerational conflict. Gender, class, and age. This is a deliberate intersection. These are not all the same thing, but they all affect Eva. Okay, Eva Smith is female. She is young, and she is poor. Okay, and this is really, really significant because her poverty and her femaleness and her youth and associated beauty result in her vulnerability. But also, you might argue that they are her strength in a very twisted way. It is these things, her youthful beauty and her need for people, that leads her into being essentially rescued, as Gerald would like to imagine it is, by him, and being kind of being noticed in the first place. She could have just faded into obscurity if she were just female and poor, but because of her beauty, her femininity in combination with that, and the vulnerability afforded by her poverty means that she can be rescued by these different fairy princes. However, because of the poverty and the youth, we know that she is just going to be used by them. So we have this vulnerability versus strength thing. It allows her a chance to be saved because people are going to notice her. But equally, it is the reason that she has no real way out. And of course, being saved by these men really didn't help her in the long run, did it? It just spelled out her doom. Okay, so when we think about gender, we're obviously thinking about kind of 1918 slash 1913, 1918, 1928. These are really significant dates. We have the whole Emily Davison event with the King's Horse. We're talking obviously here about women's suffrage, women's rights. We have votes for women, but only some women in 1918, and votes plus, where they have basically the same rights for voting as men did at the time. Okay, so these dates are really significant because they're all after the play. Okay, so 1912, Eva had no real chance. She was a woman out of the right time for kind of social justice in a gender context. Class as well. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, we had a lot of kind of protesting regarding unemployment, regarding workers' rights. So these things that kind of limited her gender, her class, and to a lesser extent her age, these things were in the process of being improved for women of the future, but not for Eva. Okay, she is not going to benefit from all of these kind of AO3 contextual details that we could add. It's not going to happen for them. And then finally, another kind of big theme in the play is that of dramatic irony. Okay, so because it is set in 1912 and it is released in 1945, we have the entire interim in which the world was shaken up and changed. Okay, so just a few of the bits of dramatic irony that we have. We know that the following things are going to happen. We know that, so within this interim period, we know that the Titanic will sink. We know that the economy will collapse. We know that women will get the vote. We know that the wars will happen. We know that social reform will come along. So all of these sorts of things that Berling is so confident will not be an issue. You know, he insists that there will be no more kind of call for social reform. You know, it will be a time for time of great prosperity for business owners like him. The wars, he doesn't realize that, of course, his son and likely Gerald would be forced to sign up for the war. So conscription happened, I believe, 1915, I believe, 1915. He didn't know that suffrage was going to really take hold. He didn't know that the economy was going to tank. He didn't know that the Titanic was going to sink. So this dramatic irony, it means that because he is wrong and the audience know it, we can read deeper into his ideologies. As a capitalist, he must also, therefore, be wrong. That's Priestley's message, really, by making, but with this dramatic irony where we know that Berling is wrong about all these things, we also realize, or we get the impression, that his philosophies, his ideologies, his ideas about how the world should work, i.e. capitalism, are also wrong. Okay, so all of these themes interconnected, justice at the center, and all of these kind of ones around the edge, just a kind of vague overview of all of the amazing, interesting ideas that you can explore in this play. Hopefully that's given you a nice little overview of the sorts of things that might feed into your essays if you're given a question on any of these themes, or indeed about justice and how it relates to any of these kind of sub-themes around the edge. Good luck in those exams.